Hey guys, Shay, Landscape Unlimited. Want to talk to y'all about a bunch of stuff that we do out here in the green industry. So irrigation is one of those. We're a licensed irrigation contractor from North Carolina, and with that, we take a lot of pride with that. And sometimes it brings us across unique situations where we have to fix something that either a customer's damaged by accident or they bought a new house. In this case, system was already installed and they didn't know where the valves were, so we had to find them. So we get to use all our tools, all our experience, thinking about how things were put in, because it's buried, so you don't exactly know where they are. And if someone didn't maintain it previously, then the stuff gets hidden. So we get to use locators, tools here to go around and trace wires and find them, which is something we did on this job. And found this valve. It was buried deep, and homeowner was happy that we found it. He tried to raise it up himself, and in doing so, he ended up cutting the wire. So now we're out here to fix that issue and put a different box on it. But if you come in here, I'll show you kind of what we're doing. So originally this box was in here and was buried way low underneath this mat of roots, and in him trying to extend it, he ended up cutting this wire. So now the wire doesn't fit in the valve box. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this box out and put in a much larger box. And the reason why we're putting in such a large box instead of splicing this and running it over is that we want to make sure those connections are in the valve box, so that if we ever had to come back and work on it, we can see all the connections and that they're not buried in the flower bed, and that they're not out somewhere where we can't see them and it would create a problem on the diagnosing side. We have lots of tools we use. Station Master 24B is one of my favorite tools that I use every time I work on an irrigation system. So this is like a lifeline. But if the wire nuts are outside the box, then we have an issue there. And if you come right here, I'll show you what I do here. So this particular valve, this is the end of the line, so none of these other color-coded wires are needed. And I only need this blue one because that's what's wired up in his clock, and this white one, which is the common. So what I do is I take the wires I don't need. I do not cut them off. I leave them there, and I wrap them around the existing wire there to keep them out of the way, so that all I have is the two that I need. I'm gonna get our two waterproof, or not waterproof, but jelly-filled wire nuts to keep the moisture out. And we're gonna wire this valve up. We're gonna wipe all the dirt off these solenoid wires. We're going to put one onto the common, grab our jelly-filled wire nut. I'm going to get that wired up there. I want to keep the moisture out because moisture is your enemy. I'm going to turn that until it's good and tight. It's a wire nut, so it's just like any other nut. You got to make sure it's tight. Grab our other one, put it on the blue wire because that will be the zone wire and the multi-wired system, and we'll make sure we get that tight as well. Me personally, I like to take these wires, loop them together like this so they stay tight in the box. And now you've got a nice clean wired up zone that's easy to work on, and you can put your valve box on it, fill it all in, put the lid on it, and you have something that you can locate and come back and work on the valve should the valve ever need to be cleaned or have trash in it, or if the solenoid goes bad and does not cut off or doesn't engage when the clock tells it to. You know where it's at, you got plenty of room to work, and you can keep this area nice and clean. So that's valve 101, wiring up and fixing irrigation. We're gonna put this valve box on, then I've got another zone to throw at you in just a minute on the other side of the yard. So hang tight for a minute and we'll get right back to you. All right, so we've got this valve wired up. One thing I like to do is, obviously we're repairing this valve, so we don't have a bunch of extra wire in here, but we always like to leave a lot of extra wire so that we can pull the wires out of the box and work on them. In this case, we're making a repair. We don't really have a bunch of extra wire, and I've explained why we don't want to make a junction outside of the valve box, because we want to be able to find these connections. We want to know where all these are, and you always try to put these with the valve. When I wire them up and I bury them, I usually try to get my wire nuts at the top of the valve box, and I usually try to always make sure the wire nuts are in this orientation, not down like this, because then water sits on top of the wire nut and can get in and create some moisture problems. They're jelly filled, but they're not waterproof, so we want to try to keep them in this orientation, and usually I try to pull them at the top, usually a lip under the valve box, try to get them in that area. And then you put your lid on, fill it up with dirt, clean it up, make it look beautiful, and that part's done. All right, so we got our valve box back filled in around and buried, and the customer hired us to fix a problem. And before we got here, he had a nice pretty flower bed. We dug it up, made a mess, roots everywhere that we got sitting over here, old valve boxes in place. We don't want to leave any of this behind. We want to make it look like we were never here. We don't have any mulch with us because it wasn't part of our plan, but there's mulch in the flower bed, so if we take and skim a little bit from all the areas, cover it all up, and you can't tell that I had a massive hole dug here. We've got our valve box cover exposed so that he can see it, and we'll clean off as much as we can there. But it's in the details, and that's why customers hire us. That's why we do what we do. And if we don't take the extra little 30 seconds is all it took me extra to do this, but it makes a big difference, and we don't have dirt all in the yard. We're not going to leave all this stuff laying out here. We're going to take that home with us. Even if we don't have a dirty truck to put it in, we'll stick it in the bed of the truck and clean it out later. Oh, that was like legit you three. I thought you were. This goes in the bloopers. I thought you were going to count it back again.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, I'll do it for you. 3, 2, action. So, customer had an issue with this valve. They couldn't find it. We traced it with our underground locating wire tracer, whatever you want to call it, advanced underground locator. And we pinged the valve in this location, but it would not work from the controller. So we diagnosed that the wires were good by disconnecting them, and we did not show a short or an open circuit using our 24B with the wires disconnect from the solenoid. And so we checked the solenoid, and we showed a short. So we knew the solenoid on top of the valve was bad. And so we bought a new solenoid, put it on the valve. Now the valve works with the clock. The clock doesn't pick up a short, and so we've got that problem fixed. This valve is a drip valve, so it has a filter here, and this valve box was on top of it, and it's a very small valve box for what we're doing here, and it was buried up underneath all these roots, and so the lid actually had a root going over top of it. So that's probably why he didn't know where it was, because it was buried and he could not find it. So once we found it, we actually were going to come back. The homeowner decided to start digging this up, and in doing so, he cut the wire in a few spots, and so we've peeled the coating back just to make sure that none of the wires were damaged, and fortunately they're not. So what we're going to do is we're going to tape all them back up so that they're not exposed to the elements and get them inside the valve box. We're going to clean up this wiring connection here so that it's nice and pretty, and we're going to put a larger valve box on it that actually will cover this filter that is for the drip system, and clean all that up. In digging all this out to put this valve box in, I actually found out that whoever installed this drip valve installed it improperly. The irrigation valves have an arrow on them, and if you come right here, I can show you that to you. So they have an arrow on them that are direction of flow for water, and so the water is going that way. This is a Rainbird 1-inch valve, and then it has the filter for the drip system on this side. This should not be on the charged side of the line. This should be on the activated side of the line from the solenoid. And so when they installed this, they put this on the wrong side. Reason for that, right now this particular system is running off a pressure switch, and so from the valve back always has water pressure on it, and from the valve forward this way into the actual zone that it controls has no water unless this valve is activated. And these are electronic valves, so they're activated from the controller that is at a different location where these wires go. The problem with the way this is installed is that if you want to clean this filter, you have to cut the water off to do it. If the filter was on the correct side, then you do not have to cut the water off at the well. As long as the clock is off and the solenoid's good and the valve isn't letting water by, you can unscrew this and clean that filter out. And you don't have that problem of, I gotta go cut the well off to clean the filter. And also, it doesn't really clean the filter very well, because if there's a T right here and water kind of goes into that, you actually end up not really catching a whole lot of material, because the water comes in, and then when another valve down the line cuts on, the water actually kind of circulates through there and will actually pull that material out and then take it to another head or whatever other zone is on. So it's not very effective and should be replaced. The customer's opted not to do that, because it would increase his bill, and he doesn't use this zone anyways. He just wants it to work in case he ever sells the house, that we have it operational. It's recommended that he changed it, but we've opted not to do that, and that's the customer's right, and we're fine by staying that way. And I've actually got another assembly in my truck, and give me just a second and I'll go grab it, and then I'll be right back to explain to you how it should be set up. All right, so I've got this other valve. It's a different manufacturer. This is actually a Hunter valve versus a Rainbird valve, but it's the same concept. So it's nothing different other than the name and the way it looks. But in theory, he's got his valve on the charged side, not the activated side. This particular valve also has arrows on it that show direction of flow. So this valve installed in this system would be installed this way. Filter on the activated side of the valve. Charged side of the valve, there is nothing, because there's nothing to worry about there. You're worried about it on the activated side. And on the activated side, say this is charged with water, you'd be able to come unscrew this, pull that out, check your filter, get any debris that's caught up in your filter out. You can even bleed the valve and push a little bit of water out and flush whatever's in there kind of out of the way. These things also work really good too, because you can actually unscrew this part on the top, and if you get you an adapter, say you wanted to water your flower beds with a water hose, you can actually just screw a water hose right on here with an adapter, and boom, you turn on the drip and you've got your drip running, but now you've also got a water hose that you can water your flowers with without having a hose barb out here. So it's very universal. We use that a lot when we install commercial plans, and they have these because we need a lot of water fast. So we'll hook a water hose to these things and water large trees, and not have to worry about a water tank or anything like that, as long as we've got one of these in the zone. Just a little tidbit there for something else. Like I said, installed in properly, but homeowner's going to leave it. I'm okay with it. We know where the valve is, and he doesn't use this zone anyway. So, did you ever watch Run's House?
Watch what?
Run's House, Reverend Run.
No.
Oh my god, that was a good one. It was on MTV. You were probably like on a boat when Run's House was a thing.
Dude, I missed the housing market crash. I missed all sorts of stuff. I came out and I was like, this song's a banger. Like, that's 8 months old. It's brand new to me. We didn't get new stuff over there.
All right, so I've got these wires cleaned up a little bit, and I like to keep my valve boxes organized, because if you ever have to come back and work on it, then it's a lot easier if the wires aren't all chaotic and intertwined and intermingled. So I like to take and get them all tidied up. I usually tuck any excess kind of underneath the pipe to keep it down, and then, like we talked about earlier, I like to keep these wire nuts kind of at the top, so that they're at the top of the valve box if it fills up with water. But one thing that's important is this is a multi-zone system. So earlier we were at the end of a line, and so there was no wires continuing past that valve. In this valve box, this valve is in the middle of the system. So this wire comes from the clock to here and then continues on to another valve, which we actually have one right here. So the wire comes from here into this valve box. And that's important to know, because if we cut this wire all the way to wire this valve up, we would have had a wire nut for this wire, a wire nut for this wire, and so on. If we carefully slice the coating out, pull out the wires we want, in this particular case it was a red, and then the white that we use as the common, then you only have to have 2 wire nuts. Less wire nuts, less chance of failure, less chance of chasing a ghost if there's ever a problem, and you have just less connection points for failure to happen. You keep the moisture out, so therefore you're keeping out the failure problems. So there's important that you do it this way on a multi-wire system. So the white wire, you have to wire up both sides. You have to wire up the side coming in from the clock, and you have to also make it continue to the next valve. The colored wire, this wire only controls this valve, so you only have to wire up the side coming in. So we know that this side comes in, this side continues down the line because it's connected to this red wire, and this side isn't needed. That is how a valve is wired up, and that's why we don't cut the wire all the way through, and we just splice that outer coating so that we can pull out the wires we need, and only those wires. You have to be careful not to nick one of these coatings, and if you do, you have to seal it up, because if you don't, you're going to let moisture in, and then you're going to create a problem down the road. So it's important not to slice these, and pay attention. So if you think you did, try to find out where it is, and either slice it back further and get you a good waterproof connection there, whether it's electrical tape or something to kind of keep that moisture out, or liquid tape. That's a good thing to do too. You dap it on there and kind of flows around the wire and gets a good weatherproof seal. One thing that I will say is diagnosing these systems, they're all buried, they're underground. So it's sometimes if you didn't install it or you don't have pictures of the work, you don't know where they're at. So you have to use experience based off of how you've installed a system, and then also systems that you've repaired, and then find out who installed those systems, because then you'll figure out, you'll kind of build a memory or a filing cabinet, if you will, of how someone else works, so that if you come to a system like this, particularly I looked at this zone or this system, looked at how the valve boxes were oriented, the ones that he could find, and immediately knew, based off of the time the house was built and the information he gave me, who put the system in. The system was put in 20 years ago probably, and well, close to 20 years. And I know who put it in because I know who did a lot of the systems in this particular community back then, because we've been in this community for so long. And so having that knowledge and how they install helped me find this valve, because I kind of knew where to look. So I wasn't searching the whole yard. I kind of was able to narrow it down based off of how they install systems. And it's important to remember that sometimes you're literally going on a wild goose chase. So you got to use all your resources. You got to talk to your customer. You got to find out, hey, like, how long have you had the house? Have you had any repairs? Is this all original? Because those things are important to help you figure these things out. It's buried. You don't know where it is. And if you did install it, hopefully you created a profile and you've got a layout or an aerial photo of the house with a drone or something, and you've got it all marked out so that you remember. But if you don't, you try to build a memory bank or a filing cabinet in the back of your head of how other companies or other individuals work, so that you know how it's done. Also, a lot of times on these repairs, you'll find out someone's not licensed very quickly by how they do things, because if they were licensed at the time they installed it, this particular person ended up with a license later, but at the time he installed this, he probably wasn't licensed, and that's why this filter's on the wrong side. But it's important to hire someone who's a licensed irrigation contractor to do this kind of stuff. It's for best management practice. You don't want to be wasting water. You want to mitigate and save the amount of water as much water as you can, and use it wisely, so you don't promote runoff and into these streams, and you want to limit erosion as much as you can. So, if you have ponds, creeks, runoff ponds, stuff like that, you want to try to keep the water on the lawn, and only water as much as the lawn or the flower bed needs, so you don't have runoff. So that's just an important part, and it's why licensed irrigation contractors are important in the industry. And I think we'll go into another video at some point about that license itself and all the details that revolve around it, and the training and all that good stuff that we go through, so that you kind of understand how the green industry has all these other aspects to it that are important. And we're not just out here planting plants and throwing out mulch and making water fly. There's reasons behind a lot of things that we do, and it takes a long time to learn all these things, because you can't learn how someone else works in school. Nobody can say, well, this person usually does it this way. They don't teach you that. You learn that from experience and just on the job. And sometimes that's just something that you just have to learn and pick up. But keep an open mind and remember how to do that when you're out there working. And over time, you'll pick up little habits and ways that other people work. And you'll learn, hey, that wasn't a good way to do it, and you won't do it. And pick up the right ways. Hercules. So I want to give a shout out to all our tools that aren't tools. Sometimes the valve box lid works perfect for moving material and getting it where it is. So if you ever need a use for a tool that's not normally classified for what it's supposed to be, ask a landscaper. They probably know how to use any tool for what they're doing. And makes everything universal. It's easy to go shopping because you just grab something off the shelf. And it doesn't matter what it is. Now it's a hammer, it's a wrench, it's a shovel, it's whatever you need. Plug you into that. All right, so we got everything tidied up, cleaned up. We got our wires in here, we got all them tidied up the best we can. We just want to make sure we remember that we keep these wire nuts oriented in the up position like this. And in this particular case, I got enough wire to tuck them up under that lip that is underneath this valve box. Kind of keeps them out of the way, keeps them out of weather. And you can come in here and work on the valve without the wires being in your way. You cut the well off in this case to clean that filter, and wires are out of your way. Put this lid back on. Now you're ready to go home, clean up all your tools, see your family, and enjoy the rest of your life.